The views and opinions expressed on Unlock Your Wealth Radio are those of the host, guests, and callers only and are not necessarily the views of Unlock Your Wealth Radio, Heather Wagenhals, or Success Publishing International.
More willpower than a barefoot woman at a shoe sale, able to stretch a single paycheck for an entire month. Makes money concepts easier than third grade math. Introducing your purveyor of prosperity, Heather Wagenhals.
Work all day, stress all night. Take your mind off your money and focus on your life. Money don't matter or the stuff it bought. It's the way you think, not what you've got.
Yeah, Unlock Your Wealth Radio starts now. Get your money mind right.
Unlock Your Wealth Radio is sponsored in part by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at heathersfreeaudiobook.com and click on the link to over 150,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. We're so glad to have you. I'm Heather Wagenhals, flanked by my producer extraordinaire, Michael Terry.
Hey.
And we will help you get your money mind right on today's show with the following great features. First off, what is the key this week?
Forget the perfection principle.
Yes, that is the key. And for those of you who haven't joined us in a while, we now have our own Keys to Riches radio program. So if you were interested in this week's key, all you have to do is visit keys-to-riches.com and you can purview this show or find us on iTunes. It is also available at unlockyourwealthradio.com. So in addition to that, we have a great moolah word of the day, and that would be effective rate. And we also have a fabulous financial planner joining us today. We have Mike Kojonen, owner of Principal Preservation Services. And we're going to talk about, last week, you probably remember we talked about busting retirement myths, but there's one thing that we didn't talk about that's kind of sort of in that whole financial planning realm, and that is the great wealth transfer. And we're going to talk about that on today's show with Mike. So I'm so excited about that. However, let's do our moolah word of the day. And it's a phrase.
What do we got?
And it is effective rate. Effective rate.
Don't know what that is.
And the effective rate is the yield on a debt as calculated from the purchase price. It is a more accurate measure of the return on a bond investment than a simple coupon payment. It's computed using both capital gains from the price appreciation and the bond's yield. So this has to do with...
In English, please.
Yeah, exactly. So this has to do with buying investments in the secondary market. So let's say your municipality wants to build a new power plant or a water district or whatever, and they sell bonds. Mm-hmm. So if you buy bonds when they sell the bond offering, and so let's say you pay like whatever X for your bond, and then it has a coupon rate, which is your interest rate that you get to claim every so often as your payment on the bond, is, let's say it's just 10%. So I can do this easy in my head. So it's 10%. All right. So your purchase, your effective rate, and the actual coupon rate are the same. Mm-hmm. But if you buy it in a secondary market, it could have a different rate. And the reason why is, let's say the bond had a face value of $100, okay, when it was originally sold. But let's say the bond in the market, the speculators, is not performing well. Maybe the project's not going well. Maybe there's news that's keeping these bonds from selling at a premium. So instead of paying $100, you only pay $90. And you still have that 10% coupon rate. I'm just going to make up this number because, for the sake of this example, not because I'm actually doing the math. But so because you spent less money on that bond, and when you go to claim that bond in, you paid $90, and then you get this coupon payment. And then when you turn the bond in, you'll get $100. Okay. So you're already ahead $10 because you bought it in the secondary market at a discount. So that $10 then gets averaged into the amount of your coupon rate. Okay. So if your coupon rate is 10% and you get $100 each time, you kind of add that difference into that $10 difference into that calculation. So it'll actually make your bond, your effective rate maybe like 11% or 12%, even though the face value says it's a 10%, because you bought it at a discount, you'll make more. Now, the opposite is true. If you paid a premium, let's say these bonds sold like hotcakes, and the fact that somebody is dumping them in the secondary market means they must have financial problems, because, who wouldn't want a $100 bond at 10% interest?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So now you might pay $115 for that bond instead of the $100 of the face value. So now you're kind of upside down because you paid $115, and when you go to collect, you're only going to get $100 back. So you're losing $15. So you have to take that and subtract it from your coupon rate to get what your effective rate would be, because your return on the investment, and this is ultimately what we're talking about, is ROI. Your return on the investment is less than the stated value, because you paid a premium to have that. Now, there are times where that's advantageous. Okay, so don't get me wrong. Don't think that that's bad. You just need to know what the effective rate is, because you pay $115. You're still collecting that 10% coupon, but it's not at a 10% amount because you didn't pay the face value. You paid more.
Right.
So that's how it can be a little bit confusing for folks. So that's just that's an important term when comparing apples to apples, because sometimes people only compare the coupon rate and the face value, but you're never into that investment for that amount.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to pay attention to. So the next thing we need to pay attention to is the Great Wealth Transfer. Why? What is it? What do we need to know? Well, could you be a recipient of, or are you part of the giving side of the Great Wealth Transfer? We will find out in short order, because Mike Kojonen, owner of Principal Preservation Services, is going to join us to tell us how to do that. He is a full-service financial firm committed to helping people pursue their financial goals. He has 2 offices in Wisconsin, and with more than 10 years of experience in the financial industry, he is dedicated to developing lasting relationships with his clients. He doesn't expect his clients to have the same financial goals, and that's why no plan of his mirrors another. He works hard to make individualized financial plans for each of his clients, and he is here to talk to us about what the Great Wealth Transfer is and how it might affect you and what you need to know. Mike, welcome to Unlock Your Wealth Radio.
I'm glad to be here, Heather.
So we keep hearing about the Great Wealth Transfer we're in. What is it?
Well, it's a transfer of wealth, just like it sounds, from the greatest generation. We're talking about the people in the World War II era, passing down to the baby boomers and then passing it down to the Generation Xers. So we're talking about $60 trillion worth of dollars being passed through generation to generation. And it
Be
started
quiet.
about
Uncle Sam could be
8 years
listening.
ago. Yeah, and it started about 8 years ago. It's going to continue for the next 54 years, so it's very important to be on top of that. What are you inheriting and what to do with that?
Wow, because, we always joke about, well, I wish I had that rich uncle or something, but, that can actually have financial ramifications for us if we inherit money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but we're finding it's not as big of an impact as we think for those people who are just counting on those big inheritance to come to you. Mm-hmm. We're finding out it only impacts less than 1% of the people on their retirement plan. Yeah.
Wow.
The problem is less people don't have as much money put aside for retirement today. Less than 50% of the people are prepared for retirement, and that's not going to make enough impact, that inheritance, on the retirement dollars.
So... wow, that blows me away. I had never heard that number before. 1% just seems really strange. So you're saying that we shouldn't count on it, but how can how can we consider that as a potential reality for us? Or should we just pretend like we don't even know we're getting an inheritance and just keep our nose to the grindstone and create our own financial plan?
Exactly. You need to count on like it won't be there. I think some of my best clients have actually prepared for retirement without Social Security. Now we know Social Security is still around, but those are the ones who have done the most. And you look at the people who are inheriting these larger inheritances, typically they're not needing it because the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So usually those large inheritances are going to be received by people who are already doing well. It's you rarely see somebody who's going to inherit millions of dollars and they're scraping to get by. That doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then people are spending the money. That's another big issue. People are spending the inheritance before they get it. I just got a call from a client last week who lost their mom earlier this year, so they're dealing with the inheritance, but she's upset because her husband's already spending the inheritance before they actually have it in their account. Already bought a car. He's already planning a trip, and you can't do that. The problem with
it's not even his mom.
It's her mom too. It's not even his mom. It's her mom, and he's spending the money before they even have an account, and he doesn't even know what they're going to get. So you got to be very careful. People are good spenders. Oh
yeah. I see that all the time in my financial coaching practice. That's for sure. And if you're not disciplined with the little money, you're certainly not going to be disciplined with the bigger money. I just it's something that my mother used to always say, and that was, if I had any money, I would manage it better.
Yeah, or if I win the lottery, this is what I would do. But if you're not faithful with a little, how are you going to be faithful with much? It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. And you're more likely to be struck by lightning than to win a lottery anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the polls, even about Social Security, kind of on the same topic, is people have believed that they have a better chance to win the lottery. This is what the millennials did in a recent survey, a better chance to win the lottery than they think they're even receive Social Security. So it's the same kind of mentality.
So does that mean that generation is actually planning financially for their future?
It doesn't. Unfortunately, they're not good savers as well. That's one thing. My generation and younger, I'm part of the Generation Xers, don't do quite as well as the baby boomer generation is saving money. And so they're typically 104% of their income. They have a really good ability to spend.
Yes.
So that's why it's good to have a plan in place. And so when children are receiving the inheritance through mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, to have some kind of plan that's set in place like a trust, to have a trust in place so they don't get it all at once.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk, when it comes to, like, let's say you're the one that is setting up your estate plan and you have accumulated some assets over your lifetime and you want to pass them on. So you mentioned the trusts. What else can we do to prepare our children or at least plan? What are some things that we can do to plan to pass on our estate and our belongings and our wealth to the next generation? How can we do that and set them up for success?
Well, first of all, while you're still on Earth here together, test them. See how are they handling their finances today. And you can give them chunks of money. In 2015, the generous contribution limit is $14,000. You can give a tax-free gift. So if you're in that position where you can be comfortable to give a tax-free gift to your child, and husband and wife can each give a $14,000 to that same child, so that child can get $28,000. See what they're going to do with that money. Just give it without restrictions. See how they handle it. Are they putting it away for maybe investment property? Are they investing it? Are they doing something smart with it? Or are they going to Cancun? Or are they buying a vehicle? Or what are they doing with that money? So that's a good indicator what they're going to do with the larger chunk of inheritance, just like you said, what they're going to be faithful with. With that test, now I think that's smart to put together a plan when you're not on Earth, like a trust, where you can put contingencies, provisions into that trust stating when can they get their money. I don't think it's smart for them to get their money all at once, but what about meter distribution? That's a term I really encourage my clients to utilize in a trust. Well, maybe one child gets 10% a year. until that money's out, so they don't get a big chunk at once. Or if you have multiple children, we all know that they come from the same family. They can all be different, so you shouldn't treat them the same as well. Maybe one is a high income earner. They can handle money better than somebody who doesn't make a lot of money. So you can put distributions based off their age, when they can inherit different per each child. I think it's smarter. Put things in there like for college expenses or down payments on houses. Things like that.
My girlfriend and her brothers had to qualify in order to be eligible to receive their trust. So they had both income and education requirements to meet.
I love that.
Yes. That's great. Income and education requirements. And you didn't make it? Too bad, so sad. And her dad, he was like a really famous doctor. Her dad set some money aside for the wife to be comfortable, but if she wanted any more of it, because she didn't work, she had to participate too.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody had like the mom didn't have the same bar as the kids, but she did have education and income requirements, but based on her abilities, for the income requirements. But both of the others, they were giving an immediate distribution at 18, kind of like that test you said. So they were giving an immediate distribution at 18, but then they had to qualify by education and investing or whatever to achieve the rest of it. I thought that was kind of a cool kind of thing to do.
I agree 100% with that. And you can also go to the other extent. Well, maybe you have a child or grandchild who's on and off on drugs, and you can make sure that their inheritance first goes to drug rehab, and they have to pass 4 random drug tests before they can inherit anything. So you can do things like that to protect the inheritance. Is not going to be blown on, obviously, drugs or alcohol. And one thing that my generation and younger, we don't do quite as well as the older generations, is staying married. So you can put provisions in there. If you're on and off again with the husband and wife, what happens if that inheritance is given before, during separation? Well, the spouse gets that, the ex-spouse. Mm-hmm. And so you can put a provision in there stating no inheritance will be distributed until the divorce is final or they've been reconciled for at least a year with marriage counseling. Just being smart with that money.
You are listening to Unlock Your Wealth Radio, and this segment of today's show is sponsored in part by KeepMyID.org, the only service that actually prevents identity theft. All others are just monitoring services. Put your credit on lockdown with their special offer for Keys to Riches radio listeners and Unlock Your Wealth Radio. Visit unlockyourwealthradio.com/KeepMyID to enroll and protect your financial future now. Remember promo code WAGS. So after that last example, leaving cash is probably not a good idea.
No, it's not. Now, when they're going to inherit it, they might be inheriting some IRAs anyways. They're going to have to take those and hopefully turn it into an inherited IRA instead of taking that whole distribution in a lump sum and paying taxes on it. I think the best gift you can give your children is a Roth IRA, because that's going to be tax-free. If you're going to give the charities, let the charities get the traditional IRAs and let the kids inherit the Roth, so there's no taxes. But maybe have the money go towards to the house, to the mortgage or student loans. Make sure that money is going directly to get those debts paid off. Mm-hmm. I think the kids they might appreciate it up front that they're not going to be able to go to Maui, but they have those debts eliminated and that interest eliminated. It's going to get them so much further in life by you doing that.
Mm-hmm. So let's flip sides of the fence. And what if we're receiving an inheritance? And so what should we do first?
Well, don't make any rash decisions. Take a step back and find out what exactly is the most important thing to do with that money. I think you should consider it a very serious event. So you're just not spending it like my previous client or my current client is doing. Find out what is the best way to do it. And I think the first one, if you do have debt, I think that's a wise thing to eliminate the debt. I think any older generation would be thinking that's a wise decision. Get rid of those credit card debts, get rid of car loans and whatever else you might have, and focus on those high-level debts or high-interest-level debts, and just create a snowball effect. The snowball effect I do recommend if you can get a budget worksheet, you get it in front of you. Most people don't even look at what's coming in and what's going out in their household, but get a game plan and list your debts and find out what the interest rates are and get rid of those credit cards first, and then put those extra funds towards the next one and until you get debt free. And my wife and I, we've been debt free for a couple of years, and it's not a better feeling to know that we don't owe anybody anything. But it took some hard work and some dedication and discipline to do so.
No question. So, so what if we don't have any debt? What if we're already managing our money well? We're just kind of middle of the road. We behave and we've got a chunk of money coming in. What then should we do with it? Okay, I don't have any debt. I just bought a sports car, so I don't need to go out and buy another one. What do I do with this money? Because I'm going to get itchy palms real quick if I don't put it away.
Yeah, great question. Well, a couple things. One is when I sit down with my clients, most of my clients are between 55 and 75. I said, what do you have in reserves for an emergency fund? And I'm finding a lot of people are just running too dry, just very thin margins. I recommend having, while you're working, 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund, which I find a lot of people don't have.
Mm-hmm.
About only 40% of Americans say they have enough money for an emergency.
3 to 6 months. I have 3 to 6 days.
3 to 6 days, yeah. But when you're retired, now you're on a fixed income, I say you should probably have 6 to 12 months of expenses in reserves. I know it's not fun making 0.1 or 0.2% in a money market account. You're not keeping up with inflation. We know that. But it's that peace of mind knowing if any emergency came up, you have the ability to get by. And so start with emergency fund, and then you want to also start working on your retirement. It's never too late to save, and you max out those 401ks as much as you can, and max out your IRAs and Roths, and start putting a little bit more money aside. I recommend 10 to 15% of your salary you should be putting aside, but we're finding people are only putting about 6 to 8% of their income aside, which is not going to be enough. In retirement.
Yeah, we're still in that spend first, save later, and what's left over. And that's the biggest
you can do
challenge.
it later, but it's going to be so much harder.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just wired that way as individuals, because financial planning, retirement, those words are so abstract. You can't touch it, feel it, understand it. It's a concept and it means something different to everyone.
Exactly. And with this new generation, they're not, who are inheriting, a lot of them don't have good relationships with financial advisors because they're in these 401k plans. And they might see somebody in the lunchroom or cafeteria at work once a year. And so they don't have a relationship with financial advisors. And we're finding about 2/3 of the people who inherit IRAs from their parents' generation, they fire their financial advisor because they don't trust them and they're not used to that relationship as it is. So it's a different generation.
Well, and it's a comfort zone thing too. It's a guy I visit with every so often, and if the financial advisor doesn't make an effort to build a relationship over time by, contacting their client multiple times throughout the year, not just on birthdays or holidays, but making it a point to update them and letting them know what the performance of their portfolio is and things like that, even if they're not making changes to recommend, that they're just not taking care of them. And so I can totally see that they would be firing them. And they would rather trust the guy that they see, down the hall that's, 4 cubicles over and they're hearing what he's doing. And he says he's making all of this money doing this crazy, risky investment. And so they'll be like, well, that makes more sense. And then they lose everything.
That's right. There's a big trust issue and just lack of, I don't think the advisors have been doing the best job just educating people on what they're in and that's just caused some distrust with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really it's interesting because this generation is the millennials are so different in the sense that they remind me of that book title, Beware the Naked Man Who Offers You His Shirt. Like they usually are not so much concerned for everybody else, but they want to save the world or save the whales. And not that that's a bad thing, but they would rather do that first and then worry about figuring themselves out later. And people say, I don't want to be about money. My parents were about money, or, I don't want to talk about money. But without money, their world can't function, and they don't get that the cause is not what's so important, it's that if they manage their money well, they can support whatever cause they want, as many causes they want. And I think that we get hung up sometimes in that emotion and our conviction about the things, and we put this money management thing aside. And I would, I'm not the only person on the radio or television talking about money management, but yet it's amazing how ignorant people are when it comes to successful money management.
Oh, you're right on with that. They're just a generation that, like you said, they're just not getting involved with that. They'll worry about it later. Unfortunately, maybe the work ethic isn't there as strong as it used to be. I got a friend. They don't want to work more than 40 hours a week. I tell you, you're only going to get ahead in life if you work, half the day. I don't care if it's the first 12 hours or the second 12 hours, but you got to work half the day. That's the only way you're going to get ahead. 40 hours a week, you just get by. And so hopefully, things will change as maturity comes in.
Right. And I think that, watching, their friends becoming instant billionaires with their latest software gadget or something that they think that it's going to be easy or quick, or that they don't have to pay dues. And I thought my generation was pretty, aggressive in the sense that we were thinking that we could walk into the CEO's office and take over his job after the first couple of months of being there and figuring out how the copier worked. But I think that this generation's even worse. What do you think? I mean, you're in my generation, so you know how we were and how hungry we were.
Yeah, it's the respect issue is just not there, which I was taught to honor and respect your elders, and I don't see that, and I think that's part of it. I think you're right on with that, where they come into some a work environment, and I have a hard time keeping good staff and people who want to work. Even work 40 hours a week. I'm guaranteeing 40 hours a week. Sometimes it's hard to even guarantee that, because people always have emotion and drama in their life, and it's more important for them to be doing other things than it is work. And I do see that, unfortunately.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with one of my pet peeves. I used to have a girl that she would always leave at 4:59, but when the bell rang at 8, she felt if she could call me at like 8:02 from the Starbucks drive-thru, that somehow that was just going to make her being tardy not an issue. What can I get you?
I had an employee that unfortunately was constantly habitually late, and being in the parking lot for her was considered not being to work on time, and that's not being in the office ready to work, unfortunately. So I understand that.
Yeah. Well, it's been great having you on the show, Mike. And if folks want more information to help with their own personal great wealth transfer or just general financial advice, how can they get a hold of you?
I'll give you a toll-free number, 855-987-8888. 855-987-8888. And my website is, I got a couple of them, goes to the same place, preserveyourdollars.com or principalpreservationservices.com.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for being a part of Unlock Your Wealth Radio. And for those of you who are driving around without a pencil, never fear. UnlockYourWealthRadio.com is here, where you can get the information Mike just shared with us from his show page on our website. And for more in-depth interviews with money experts, strategies, and members-only tools to fix your credit, get out of debt, and have more money and happiness, do what other savvy listeners have and visit UnlockYourWealthRadio.com, where you go to get your money mind right so your wealth and happiness will follow. For Unlock Your Wealth Radio and the maestro of Moolah, Michael Terry, I'm Heather Wagenhals. Now go out and unlock your wealth today.
UnlockYourWealthRadio.com is produced by Heather Wagenhals and the Unlock Your Wealth Foundation. UnlockYourWealthRadio.com and its affiliates are copyrighted 2015 with all rights reserved. For more information on the Keys to Riches Financial Wellness Series, please visit our website at www.unlockyourwealth.com.